In this lesson, we'll learn how we can start to control the layout and the display of our various viewports. Okay, so really when I talk about the viewports, that's really these four main areas or these four main windows that we see within the interface. So we have over in this upper right-hand corner, we have our camera view, and then over here we have our different orthographic views, top, front, and right. So let's first start to just take a look at the different display options that we have within these. So in order to see these, we first need to drop in some kind of a piece of geometry here. So just for the sake of simplicity, let's go to Get Primitive, we'll go to Surface, and let's drop in a sphere. Okay, we'll go ahead and just close this property page out. We'll learn a little bit more about property pages in one of our later lessons. So we've already seen how we can start to move around and navigate within our viewports. Now, the movement of our orthographic views is really almost identical to the movement of our camera or our perspective view. So we can just press and hold the Alt key, or rather the S key on our keyboard. And you can see that we can zoom in and dolly around exactly the same way that we would zoom in and dolly around within our main viewport. Now, right now you can see that we are only looking at just a simple wireframe of our geometry. Now if we wanted to change that, we can go up to the upper right-hand corner of our viewport and pull down this menu that says Wireframe. Now if we want, we could switch this to Shaded, and now you can see we are actually able to see essentially just a shaded view of our object. Now we can actually control what is displayed completely independently within our different viewports. So you can see, even though I've switched this camera to a shaded view, all of our other orthographic views are still set to wireframe. So if I wanted to set maybe my front view to shaded, I can just pull down my menu, switch that to shaded, and there we go. Now, in addition to just a simple wireframe or a shaded, we can actually start to get mixtures of these. So let's say we actually wanted to actually still be able to see the wireframe on our object at all times, not just when it's simply selected. So what we could do is, again, go up to this upper menu and turn on wireframe on shaded. And now you can see that even if an object is deselected, we can still see the wireframe on it. This can sometimes be really useful for modeling purposes if we need to have certain pieces of geometry that match up, or really any number of situations. And again, if we want to, we could just turn that back off if we no longer need that. We also have the ability to turn on what's called a headlight. Now a headlight becomes useful because as you start to swing around to the back side of our object, you notice it becomes entirely black. That's because at this point we really don't have any light that is striking this particular part of our object. So it becomes very, very difficult to actually see really anything at this point. So again, you can see as I orbit around that the light is essentially stationary in our scene. Now by turning on the headlight, we can essentially now connect a light directly to our camera. So now as I swivel and move my camera around, you can see that it lights my object from all different directions, or it really lights it from whatever direction my camera happens to be pointing along. So for modeling purposes, this becomes very, very useful. Now when it comes to actually working within these different viewports, typically you'll probably want to at some point in time probably expand and make these viewports a little bit larger. Now that can be done by just clicking on this icon that's in the very, very far upper corner. So if I click on that, you can see that it will actually take any viewport that we have and actually just maximize that. If I want to get that back to where it was, just simply left click again, and there we are. And we can do this for any of our viewports at any point in time. Now, we're not necessarily limited to just taking our viewports and maximizing them and making them a quad view. We actually have a little bit more control over that. So if I were to take this viewport icon and now right click on that, you can see we can maximize it, but we can also expand it horizontally or vertically. So for example, if I set this to expand vertically, you can see now it will essentially take that, and instead of maximizing it to the entire screen, it'll just maximize it vertically. Now again, if I just left click on that, you can see it will now take it from a 3-panel view now to more of a maximized view. Now again, if I wanted to, I could come back and restore that to its original setting. We can also expand this horizontally. So now we can actually take any of our viewports and really just have those cover as wide of an area as we want. Again, for modeling purposes, this can become really useful if we want to be able to frame up different parts of our object in different views. If at any point in time you want to essentially get back to your default setting, again, we could right-click and choose Restore, or we actually have a few pre-built viewport layouts down here at the bottom. So if we were to click on this default 4-panel view, you can see again that will essentially reset us back to whatever we had to begin with. Now, in addition to just displaying the shaded or wireframe of an object, we can actually display entirely new information within these viewports, something that is really not related directly to our geometry. So for example, if I wanted to, let's say, maybe display some hierarchy information within this top view, we could just click on the actual label for that view, go down, and you can see we can actually choose to display any of these different windows within this particular viewport. Now, again, we'll talk about these in a little bit more detail as we start to progress a little bit further through this training. But for example, if we wanted to open up something like the texture editor, or maybe even something like the Explorer, typically we can open these up as a free-floating window, but we can also open these up and just have those be docked directly within any of our viewports. And again, we'll learn a little bit more about the Explorer and some of these other windows that we see listed in here as we progress a little bit further through this training. Okay, so that's really just a quick look at how we can start to customize and control the display of our objects within our various viewports.